So
Next thing I know, you're going to be making a movie, Jared.
I don't know about a movie.
A
A
short,
documentary on property management, HOA
a
management.
short film.
So we're here with Danita Wilson, and we're not going to use we're just going to call it the Muse for now.
Sure.
And in general, we won't name other companies or use last names for people, but we can use first names and we can just talk about experiences that. But so this is Danita. She's the president of the Muse, and wanted to have her on because she is responsible for basically, I don't want to say my start, but kind of my start, because you were the first. I mean, I had initially just gotten into this to manage the association that I owned property in, and you were the first outside association to hire me. And I was brand new. I was like maybe a few months old.
You were.
And you guys took a risk on me, and I think it's probably paid off.
Yes.
It's paid off in your water bill for sure. But yeah, I just wanted to get you on and chat with you about your experience, and maybe you can tell the viewers a little bit about who you are, what you do for your day job, and then once you're done with that, we can get into your involvement with the association. But I guess to start with, what do you do for work?
So I'm employed at the Hartford Board of Ed.
Okay.
I handle all the contracts.
Oh.
Yeah, 48 schools, 9 different departments. That's my day job.
Okay.
And then the president of the board is like a whole nother job.
It is a job.
It is.
People don't realize how much goes into that.
Yeah, but so I've been a president, I want to say probably about 7, 8 years.
Okay. And how long have you been there? When did you buy your unit?
Okay, so I bought my unit probably about, I want to say 18 years ago. But I stayed there, then I left, and then I came back. It was one of them type of things, but
Like you moved away?
overall, yeah, I did.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
And but overall, yeah, about 18, 19 years.
Cool. And your dad owns a unit there too?
Yes,
Did he buy before you or after you?
after.
Okay. So you were just saying, hey, it's a good spot. Come join me?
Yeah, but the price was right.
Price was right.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
That is one of the nice things of being involved in your HOA, especially if you're into, real estate investing, is you kind of know of stuff sometimes before it hits the market, or like,
Right.
someone's itching to sell, and you can get a good deal that way. So you've been on the board 7, 8 years, or you've been on the board, or you've been
that
president?
was as president.
Okay.
So on the board, I would say a little bit longer.
Okay.
So the position as president, well, I've been voted in a couple of times, of course, but it was handed down to me with the last president. He moved.
Okay.
So it fell on me by default because I was the vice president. Not that I was actually prepared at the time, but duty calls because we were self-managed at the time.
Really?
Yes.
And so tell me a little bit about what happened and what led you to be self-managed and how that went.
Well, we became self-managed because we had to fire our property management company. We had been through a couple of different property management companies that were, I want to say, maybe robbed us a couple of times. That just didn't do good by
Didn't do good by you guys.
by our association. So after a while, and then you usually is a few of us that actually cared, because you have some residents that don't really care what's going on. They just go with the flow.
Right.
Then you have the other ones that, once you start seeing the red flags, you have to handle business.
Right. And so what were some of the things that you guys were seeing that led you to believe or suspect that you were being robbed? And like, how did you navigate that? Because I know it comes up a lot, like more than you think in HOAs where that's the suspicion. And it sounds like you guys were able to successfully, figure that out and move off of that. So kind of what happened with that?
Always the budget.
Okay.
Always, once you start reviewing the budget and see that, anonymous fees within the budget are unexcused fees.
Things that weren't in the contract.
That raise questions. And then even, decisions being made without the board. So some property managers have a tendency of, just making decisions without talking to anyone at all.
Right.
So that was a big red flag.
Yeah. And that can be problematic. You can lose a lot of money that way. Just start paying for stuff that nobody knows
about.
It's getting paid for. Yeah. So you guys self-managed. How was that experience?
Initially, it was okay once, we came together as a board to figure everything out. We did it, I want to say, probably about good 5 to 6 years.
Oh, wow. It's a while.
Then we got tired.
As happens. Yeah, that happens.
Then we said it was time.
Yeah.
It was time to start searching for a management company. Even that process can be challenging, trying to find the right person, because you don't initially know who you can trust.
Right.
So being, self-managing, it takes a lot of work and dedication.
Right.
To self-manage.
Managing in general does. But self-managing is harder because you're not getting paid for that, right?
Right. Even, the time and dealing with the community and, solving everyone's problem. When you have a management company, you can pass the buck. You can pass the buck to the management company, but being self-managed, you have to take on that responsibility to make sure that all the maintenance is done in it, in the community, and everyone's safe.
Right.
Handle everyone's problems. Listen to everyone vent. So, that's a job in itself.
Sure. Absolutely. And so you self-managed, and then you ended up hiring
You.
No. I came in after.
No, then you came in right after self-manage.
Well, you guys had self-managed for like 3 months, but Marissa was in there before me.
You're right.
Yeah.
Right.
So you hired,
That's right.
at some point you hired Marissa.
We did hire, yes. Yes, we did.
And so what happened with that?
So the problem with that was we had some flooding issues. We had some flooding issues, and it wasn't actually Marissa, but it was the company that kind of insisted on
Doing the work.
doing certain work, didn't give the residents the option of picking the type of material for the repairs. Hired a handyman to do, quite a few repairs, wasn't licensed, and then some of the residents complained about it, and when actuality, the residents should have been able to pick, pick what they wanted for flooring or carpet or.
Right.
So it became a big mess.
Yeah.
With the repairs from the flood.
Now, my understanding was that Marissa had her own company and she ended up selling to a bigger company, selling her company, and they kind of absorbed that. Is that correct?
Well, Marissa was an employee of the management company. So the management company
Okay.
kind of exhausted, and the people took on and worked for a management company that was based out of Florida.
Okay. But did they absorbed or they took over a local management company,
Right.
which is who they originally worked for?
Right.
Okay. Makes sense. And were you there prior to that takeover, like when it was just that local company?
Yes.
And was the service better then? Or was it basically the same?
I would say it was the same.
Okay. Interesting. I only know about that because talking with another management company not involved in this, they were saying that they were losing a number of properties since that takeover because it just wasn't. Well, I know one of the issues you were having was that all the checks were getting paid in Florida. So all the vendors were getting paid late and you guys were taking on a ton of late fees because they just weren't getting paid in time, right?
Yes, but we disputed that.
Oh, you did?
Oh, definitely.
Okay.
That's not our fault.
Right.
That's not our fault, and they rectified that.
Good.
But not only that, like even the monthly fees, even our monthly dues were late, but they rectified that.
Good. Okay. Awesome. And then, so you guys were not thrilled with that because of various issues.
Right.
Getting payments on time, hiring the right contractors, communication with the board, a number of those issues. Is anything I missed that you guys were not happy with working with them?
Well, you know what? They did change a little bit when they, because they had to start following, because our Connecticut policy is quite different than Florida policy, and a lot of their policies were based out of Florida. So there were some changes there on what they could actually do for us. So the relationship became a little difficult
Okay.
with
Cool.
them.
Was it short? Was it only like a year or two?
It was a short relationship. Yep. It was very short. And then towards the end, the main problem was towards the end, with the flooding issues and the way that they managed the services. So that made the relationship quite difficult. So we decided to not renew.
Okay.
To not renew the contract. And
Now, so now, from your perspective, because I know the story from my perspective, right? It's my life. It's what I lived, right? But from your perspective, how did everything transpire with us, where you ultimately decided to bring me on as the next? Because I know you self-managed for like 3 months, and then in that time, we talked a few times, but eventually, he ended up calling me and saying, "Hey, we want you to manage us." So how did that all play out, and how did you guys arrive at that conclusion? Because I obviously wasn't privy to those conversations.
so I have to let you in on a secret.
I got to let us all in on a secret.
So you did come in as a referral, a direct conversation with me,
Right.
to be exact. And I think at the time there were 2 other companies that we were also, like, per se, interviewing.
Yeah.
So it was 3,
Yeah.
which is reasonable.
Yeah.
3 different companies, and I actually want to say, I think it was only me and one other board member that was doing walkthroughs with the companies.
Really? Okay.
And it kind of came to a point where we knew you were new. So, that was one issue because we
Right.
knew that our property it had a lot of issues, and so we were, well, I won't say myself, but it was a determining factor if you could actually manage the challenges that we were facing with being new and being small. But you had great ambition, a great personality, and you explained quite a bit to us of what you were dealing with because you already had a company at the time that you were managing, and we did like that you had a certain software that you were using. The one of the other management companies that came on, during their interview process, we weren't really that impressed with one of them. So we kind of narrowed it down to you and one other company. And I kind of,
We competed on
pushed
price better.
I kind of pushed that envelope to say, look, he's new, he's willing to work with us, and it would probably be better, in our best interest to go with you, other than someone that that's coming in and the other company, they were kind of like bullfighters.
Bullfighters
Yeah, they wanted to just come in and
bully everybody around.
and say what it is that we had to do other than what we should or suggest or need to do. So it's a difference.
Right.
It was a difference in conversation. So we kind of brought it to a vote,
Okay.
and you won it.
That's awesome. Thank you guys. I don't know if I should be grateful or a little concerned of your judgment just because we were so new. But no, I think it worked out well. And I'm
No, it did. But sometimes you could be because too we had a lot of issues going on at the time.
Yeah.
And then we had a lot of issues going on at the time, and then taking on someone new, that could be challenging because one of the concerns were you experienced enough to deal with the type of issues that we had going on the property.
Valid question.
And as coming on, it
It was a lot.
it was a lot going on,
Yeah.
and we knew that. So not so much of the inexperience, it's like the pressure. We were also thinking, well, you're going to be able to handle the pressure
Right.
that comes with managing us.
And I think what we both had going for us was that I was new and I was small. I was hungry.
Exactly.
I was hungry and I had the time to figure it out. Like it was you and one other property. So I could just take as much time as I
Right.
could be up there every week. I could
Right.
figure this stuff out. And so,
And I think that's what we love the most is
Okay.
that you were able to give and dedicate so much time, to us and to the property, and you really invested yourself, all your time and energy, and you gave us quality, every week.
I appreciate
And
that.
bigger companies definitely couldn't offer that. They couldn't offer a 2 or 3 times a week visit.
Right.
You might get one visit every 2 weeks.
Once a month. Yeah.
Once a month. But, we had your heart.
Right.
You were there almost every day.
I was. Well, then we started doing the landscaping and snow. And then we were definitely there almost every day. Yeah. And I think that was super helpful for me too, understanding what went into it, but also, and I know we found a price that was beneficial for, like, you guys saved some money. We were able to get our foot in the door and kind of gain some experience that way. And, but being on property, really getting to know the community, getting to know, who lives there, where they live, what their personalities are, what kind of vehicles they drive. And really, I think by doing the landscaping and snow as well, I was able to get a very good pulse on like what was going on there. Mm-hmm. And I think, and when you guys brought me on, the big thing was the water issue, right? And that was the big thing you talked about. And maybe you can fill them in, because the water issue has turned into this thing that, believe it or not, like one of the most reasons I'm the most grateful you guys hired me was because of this water issue.
Oh, really?
Which was the bane of everybody's existence. But the fact that we're able to fix it is honestly, like, when I look back and say, what are the things I'm the most proud of in my life? That's one of them.
It has to be the water bill. So we were talking $100,000 water bill.
A year.
That went on for several years. Well, really more like 15.
Yeah.
Like 15 years, anywhere from $80,000 to almost $100,000.
That was the balance, but you guys were paying over $100,000 a year to them in water as well.
Right. So, we struggled for about 15 years trying to figure out with the leak, why, the meters, try to get MDC to help us. Mm-hmm. We even negotiated and made deals with MDC, and then no follow through. Mm-hmm. So that was one of our main factors. That was like the factor.
Yeah, that's a huge amount of money.
Upon hiring. Yeah, we're paying them, $10,000 a month?
10 to 15, yeah. 10 to 15 a month.
$10,000 to $15,000 a month in water.
Water usage, yeah. And and you guys had hired leak detection companies?
Oh, multi. I mean, even, had MDC come out, check for water leaks. We changed some meters. Everybody changed their toilets. Like anything that we could think of, it was done.
Right.
For this water leak. Pulled up a couple of sidewalks.
I saw that, yeah.
Trying to detect the leak.
Yeah. And
this went on for years, at least 15.
Right. Multiple management companies.
Yes.
Crazy. And you were pretty clear about it. Like, this is our big thing. Like, we need this fixed. And I had no idea how I was going to fix it, but I was confident that I could, if I really applied myself, we could figure it out. And it wasn't, and I got to give credit where credit's due. I mean, I couldn't have done it on my own. I just happened to know a few people that were kind enough to help me out and point me in the right direction, and we were able to figure it out together.
But, which was, a blessing in disguise. Because I remember having a conversation with you when you were going to start. Mm-hmm. And you gave me a few, like, point areas. Mm-hmm. You said, I'm going to dig up this spot, this spot, this spot. But the first spot you pick, there was the leak.
We got really lucky with that. We were, and it was just like, so for the viewers that don't know, and I didn't know, because you honestly, unless you looked at the plans, the as-built, you wouldn't have known that there was foundations in that area. So the developer had put in a third phase of the development and ran out of money, correct, when they were building it. And so you'd end up just filling it all in with dirt and putting grass seed down. Yes. And it's a field, right? You would not know that there's anything there. And when we're looking at the as-built, we see this plan for this whole other building, and like utilities all run there. Mm-hmm. And, the civil engineer who used to work with MDC and was like, hey, if I had to guess, probably where your water's coming from is like, if there's utilities, live utilities in this field, like probably there. It could be anywhere in that field, right? Mm-hmm. So we talked about it. And we're like, well, we'll try to dig as close to the source as possible. Like it could be anywhere in the field, but we'll dig here. And we started digging, and sure enough, there was water. It wasn't a lot. It was just a little bit, but I called him. I was like, could this be groundwater? He's like, no, maybe, but most likely not. And we just kept digging, and eventually we found it. Were you there? You were there that day.
Yes.
You remember?
I think I came home from work. You sent me pictures.
There's water everywhere.
You text me and I left work.
Really?
Yes, because that was an amazing moment for me.
Yeah.
Left work and came, and seen the water. And it's like, oh my God, finally. Because like you said, you're talking $10,000 to $15,000 a month.
For 10 to 15 years.
And spending. It's like such a, waste of money.
Right. And I had John on the podcast, the plumber who helped me.
Oh, okay.
And we were talking about this because we always talk about it. This is one of like the coolest job work stories we have. And he goes, yeah, I remember the president came by and she asked me, how much is this going to cost? And he looks at it, he's like, who cares? Look at it. He's like, I'll charge whatever I want. And I think, it was just like such a big thing. And I think when it was all said and done, it cost you guys like $13,000. 1 month of water.
1 month, right.
He's like, I should have charged more. He's like, it was just funny that, what was funny to me about the whole thing. And this is, and I want to say that this experience, not only am I proud of it, but it was one of the moments where I looked and said, hey, maybe I can really, property management, I can provide value here. What was interesting to me is you guys hired some kid with like 3 months of experience in property management who just started a management company, had like 1.5 employees, himself and like a part-time kid that helped him landscape, right? And, that person with no experience and was able to just try hard and take the time and get a little tractor that he bought. I started the management company so I could buy a tractor. I really wanted a tractor.
I'm sure you did.
I really wanted a tractor, and I was like, how can I afford this tractor? And I was like, well, if I start a management company, a landscaping company, I can justify it. So I took my little Kubota. It's like one of the first jobs I got with a little backhoe, and I dug a hole and I found water where where leak detection companies, management companies, where everybody else had failed. And I was like, man.
And when I tell you multi-companies, I mean, we've hired everyone under the sun. Mm-hmm. Multiple times. Multiple times. Like, this was a yearly project. Every year, we hired someone to try to find, to detect the water. Yeah. With all of their cute little machines. It didn't matter. Please come and find this leak for us. Mm-hmm. So, yes, that was such a relief. But two, with you being the new guy mm-hmm. and dedicating so much time, mm-hmm. and I'm pretty sure we put a lot on your shoulders. I know that we did. And that's probably what we're most grateful for is that, that you did have that time available for us and then was determined. And I don't know, maybe we hyped you up in some sort of way because, anyone would have looked at that water situation and know how ridiculous it was. And that gives a little determination of, what, we got to solve this issue.
It was crazy. I mean, yeah, we had to solve that. I mean, mm-hmm. And I looked at the numbers, I looked at the budget and the financial statements. I'd be like, until we fix this, you guys can't do anything else. And the property shows that you get no money for siding, no money for stairs, no money for anything else because you were paying water. Mm-hmm. And overnight, that bill went from $15,000 a month to $2,300 a month, right? In 1 month, right? And we were holding our breath, crossing our fingers, mm-hmm. crossing our toes, like, because we capped it and we're like, what if, like, because we're like, okay, we think the water's here, but what if there's another leak? What if there's another leak somewhere in the property? Mm-hmm. And so we were just waiting waiting. And then it came down to like $2,300 a month. We're like, okay, this is reasonable. This is
Right.
correct.
Right.
And from that moment forward, all of a sudden, you guys had money to do stairwells. You had money to, in addition to paying the MDC outstanding bill, over the course of the next year, right? Over the course of the next year, you guys had money to do this stuff. You guys had money to make the repairs and reinvest in the property. And, now you're at a point where you kind of have to play catch up a little bit with all the work that needs to be done. But I just think like, man, if you guys had been doing all that stuff all this time and someone had just helped you out early on, you guys could be in a totally different spot. And I know we can't go back. I mean, I know we tried to go back and see if MDC would comp us for some of this stuff because really someone from MDC should have inspected this. There's no way this should have been left in the ground live.
Well, see, we got, like I said, we did so many different negotiations with MDC. We really tried to get as much assistance as possible. I mean, it was even to where at one point we had a unit that we owned, and we made an agreement to sell the unit, pay half of our bill off, and they would do a total inspection. Came time for the inspection. They said, "Oh, no, we don't want to mess with this valve just in case it breaks," and shut down the whole water investigation. So, no, they didn't give us the assistance that, was required.
Right.
And they, and I mean, this is several different times. Like we've done water shutdowns to try to find the leak. We had MDC out there, at least every other year, hoping and praying that they would assist us with finding the leak.
Crazy.
And each time another excuse came up of, why it stopped. But you've been in their presence to see,
They're ruthless.
It's very minimal.
Oh yeah. I mean, they really don't care. And they don't have to. I mean, I didn't realize that they are indemnified against any lawsuits or action. Like, because they're a public utility, you cannot bring a claim against them. You cannot sue them. You have no right to, you have no ability to fight with them. So they literally have autonomy to do whatever they want. And it's one of those situations where you look at like the system and it's how it's set up and the potential for corruption and the potential for like, even if it's not overt corruption, there's just, who holds them accountable?
Well, you can't.
Right? They're like, yeah, we're providing water to you guys, so we get to do whatever we need to do to figure that out, right? And so that was a very difficult realization. Even after the whole leak was repaired, the legal battle that ensued after that to try to get some of those outstanding balances reduced and to say, hey, listen, like this was not done properly. There's no way this live line should be left in the ground. There's no way. Like you guys had promised to help them and you reneged on those, on those promises and like, where's the accountability?
Because now that I think about it, because then they filed suit. Wasn't that after? That was after the fact.
Yeah. So we had already fixed it.
Already fixed it.
And we were trying to negotiate with them to bring the balance down because it's like.
Because they knew it was a leak. I mean, because it had been on record for, years.
Right.
So they knew it was a leak. They didn't want to help us find the leak.
Right.
And now they wanted us to be responsible for the balance, knowing it was a definite leak.
It was a definite leak, and it was definitely, something that they had, not only that they should have helped fix, but when the property was being built, they have inspectors, and people who are on their staff who are supposed to regulate and monitor these items, right? And make sure that things are installed and make sure you're not burying a live, 4-inch ductile iron water main that goes to nowhere, right? Like it's just someone has to make sure that doesn't happen.
They didn't want to take responsibility of that at all.
No. And And yeah, that was I think that was the toughest part of the whole thing was,
Yeah, because then they turned around and sued us.
yeah, they were like, yeah, you don't want to pay. Okay, we'll sue you. We go to court, bring it to court. And then I start to learn how it all works.
Yeah, so we can get, now that we fixed the leak, we can get sued, but we were able to stay delinquent for 20 years.
Right.
How much sense does that make? We let you be delinquent for 20 years.
Right.
But now that you're not paying, now that your water bill isn't, $15,000 a month.
And you're trying to catch up.
Yeah, and now it's down to 2,000, we'll sue you.
Wild.
Right.
So we got through that, and we're on the tail end of paying that off. We're a few months away from paying off that bill, along with their exorbitant legal fees, right? And we're moving on to the next phase of doing all the repair work to the siding. I mean, the siding is, old cedar shake and all that stuff. And you're talking a big project, well over $1 million, maybe close to $2 million. We'll see. But the nice thing is, if you guys have the funds to do it, like you're actually in good shape for your dues only being $365. Like, you're in good shape. You have enough buffer where you can take on this loan and pay it off over time. Like, it's very rare. There's other associations where they're like, oh yeah, we want to do a new roof and we want to take a 15-year loan. And I'm like, no. Like, interest rates, the term of the loan, all this stuff, like, you guys are just hamstringing yourself for no reason, right? Fortunately, you guys are in a position where you know everything that needs to be fixed. And if you can just do it all at one time and take on that 10 or 15-year loan, you'll be in good shape. You're not going to have, everything's fixed. Your dues are they're not going to go up too much. It's going to be like, okay, but you're going to see you're going to see the results immediately. And what you get done now is going to last you for more than the term of the loan. Because a lot of these associations take on the loan but they don't think of, they're only getting that roof or whatever. And they're not factoring in the paving. They're not factoring in the siding. They're not factoring in the windows and the doors and all this other stuff. So they're taking on this loan for this one piece. By the time 5 years come around, and the roof is forgotten about, they have something else popping up. So what I do like about this and kind of the direction we're taking with this is like, okay, we know everything needs to be fixed now. And we can do it all because the main big items, we stop hemorrhaging money, right? So you can do it and restore the community back to what it was, right? Get the gates fixed and make this kind of nice gated community for professionals that looks the part, that feels the part. And I think that, it's going to be, you guys are going to see it in the next few years restored to
Bringing the beauty back.
Right. So I'm excited for you guys in that respect. I am. Now, what are some other, because that water issue, I mean, I talk about all the time. It's just one of the wildest things. But like, what are some other items or just things that have popped up over the years of your being involved in the HOA that have been, that stick out to you as like, difficult or troubling situations that it would be valuable for our viewers or people following us to know about, just because they could run into those issues too, and maybe how you were able to resolve those issues in your association, board members, political entities.
Well, I mean, the community itself have to, stay at a medium for everyone to get along. That could cause an issue of just the politics of the bylaws, which one thing that we do need to do is update the bylaws.
Yeah. Well, all the condo docs kind of out of date.
Yeah, because, following the old rules that were done, centuries ago, times have changed. times have changed and things need to be updated because you might have certain people in the community that will always disagree. So I think that's probably been one of the main challenges because when you have a board, it's good to be able to bounce back off of one another and, have the best interests of the community. But you may have at least one person in the community that's just not going to agree with anything.
Right.
And, that one person can cause a upheaval with everyone else.
Yeah.
So that's probably just been an issue. I try to get along with everyone in the community. But you can only do so much.
Yeah, we were talking earlier how before this that everybody has your number. People
Yes.
are calling you all hours of the day and night when they don't want to call me, or
Right.
if I don't answer right away, they're calling you next.
Right. Even after I say, well, did you leave a voicemail? He doesn't have a voicemail. I'm thinking every phone has a voicemail.
Especially mine.
Every phone has a voicemail. Yeah. But I'll take the call, It doesn't matter what time it is. If I'm on vacation, I will take the call because you never know. They're calling because it's their emergency.
Correct.
It may not be an emergency for me. Mm-hmm. It may be something that could wait till tomorrow and call Jared. But it's their emergency at the time. So I have to take that into consideration and be courteous. Be courteous to my neighbor that's in my community. And that's the position that I take, that I'm in. So, and I'm okay with it. So after I take the call, then I call you.
Yeah, you do. Or you send me a text or whatever the case is. And I think that goes a long way towards, I'll say it is, as a property manager, it's helpful for me because, you're involved in the community. People know you, people trust you, people like you. It's why you've been reelected to president so many times in a row, right? We have these elections every 2 years. They keep putting you back in. And I think for the most part, people feel like you will advocate for them when they really need something. And you have one unit owner that you guys don't see eye to eye, but at least him and I are civil. And, I think that at least if one of us is good with him, if I'm good with him and you're good with everybody else, I think we'll be okay, right?
It works out. Yes.
Yeah. And but it's definitely helpful for me to have someone who's in the community, who has a pulse on the community, and who's willing to take those calls on nights and weekends, right? And even if, because for my sanity, I have to not do that. I've had to learn, like when I remember my first few associations, everybody had my cell phone number before we got a work line. And at a certain point I said, I can't do this anymore. I'm going to lose my mind. And so then we got the work phone, but a lot of people at the Muse still have my direct cell phone number, right? And it can get overwhelming, especially if it's after hours. I'm trying to get something else done, or we're doing this podcast or whatever. Because there's, you see my board, everything's jam packed. We're busy. And, but I know if everything kind of flows through you or flows through Bella, like when you call, I know you've already kind of digested the information a little bit and you've broken it down to its most important parts. And you can just say, hey, listen, this is the issue. Can you take care of it tomorrow or whenever, And it's like, okay, fine. And I know when you call me or you send me a text or whatever, it's like, it's just a few words. It's like, hey, heads up, send a picture, whatever. Whereas when a unit owner calls me and I answer the phone, sometimes I'm stuck there for a half hour while they just talk. And they give me all the other details and all the other stuff that I don't need to know.
Definitely know what you mean.
Right?
Yes.
And so when they do that with you, and then you can just send me 3-word text of like, here's a picture, take care of this tomorrow. Like, perfect. I got you.
Oh, definitely know exactly what you mean. Because you're there. You're listening for, 15 to 30 minutes.
Yeah.
When you just want to know what the bottom line is. And it could be that a light bulb is out.
Could be very simple.
You know, it's like, okay, you're calling at 12 a.m. because a light bulb is out.
Or,
But, you know, like I said, it's their emergency. And, you know, because to me, that probably could have waited till the morning.
to me, that could have waited too. Yeah, I've had some interesting emergency calls, and I've made some videos, and people watch the videos and they're like, "Why are you so mean?" Like, because in my video, as I've said, you're calling for this emergency. It's probably not an emergency. Like, they're like, "Oh, there's black mold in my storage unit." Okay, did it get there in the last few hours?
Oh,
And
that's
will
so
it be able to be resolved in the next few hours?
Okay.
Or did you just find it and now it's
That's
an emergency?
funny.
Right?
So what is probably the top on your list for the worst emergency call?
You were there. The worst like a true emergency or like a fake emergency?
Give me both.
So the true emergency, which was the wildest one, and you were there for it, was on my anniversary, my 2-year anniversary. You remember that one?
Yeah.
And the burst pipe
Right.
in 2A.
Right.
And the dude shows up and he sees it. He's like, "Yep, not in my unit, not my problem." Like, "Yep, it is your problem. That's your mechanical closet. Not my fault. You've never been to this property, but you own it, right?"
And he leaves.
And he leaves with this waterfall, this like gushing. I mean, the pressure from that pipe was so great because it was like a 3/4 inch main line that it shot through like 2 sheets of drywall into the unit. Like everything's flooded out. And the dude just shows up and is like, "Yeah, not my problem." And I'm like, "Dude, there's like 6 inches of water on your unit floor. My dude upstairs is flooded. Like, you know, this lady's got stuff raining down around her back entry door." And you're just going to be like, "Yeah, it's not." I mean, it is. And not only is it your problem, this happened because you decide to leave your unit vacant in the middle of the winter and not just turn your heat off, disconnect your utilities. Like he had to call Eversource to reconnect his utilities, his gas and power. And so, and what was the most wild to me about it was we told him it had to be fixed. So we paid for my plumber to fix it. And it happened 2 more times that
Right.
month
Right.
because he just
Happened
kept
again.
refusing to do it.
No, he wouldn't turn on the utilities.
And then, so yeah, then we just, you know, he ended up paying for it, but it was crazy, dude.
But even trying to get him to pay for it was an issue.
Oh yeah. I mean, he had to go to collections and foreclosure and eventually sold the unit. And he got his nephew or something to buy another. I was really scared about it. I thought they were going to try to do like just buy, because I know he had a lot of money. I thought he was going to just try to buy a bunch of units and get rid of everybody, like, you know, get rid of the board.
Maybe not after dealing with you.
I hope not. I hope that's what it was. But the nephew was the same way. I mean, we had to take him to collections too because he just stopped paying. And eventually he sold it and had to pay it off. But it was crazy. And so that was the worst real like, just because, I mean, it was my anniversary. It was like
cold.
It was freezing. It was the middle of the winter, and it was, you know,
And it was late and trying to stop the water. And yeah, it was a mess.
huge mess.
It was.
Sheen was soaked. I felt so bad for him. He was a trooper that day, though.
He was.
I'm gonna have him on next.
Oh, great. I'm pretty sure he'll talk about that incident.
I'm sure he will. Yeah. And you know, it was just I think that was one of the worst. I mean, we had a lot of water heaters go that year, and I think that at least we're in a position now where we're in a position now where we know what to remind people of, and we know you know, what kind of water heaters they can put in place and what they can't, and really navigate it that way. The worst fake emergency. I get those all the time. I don't know if there's a worse fake one. It's just sometimes are more inconvenient than others, and some people are nastier than others. I think I had one recently, or I've had a few recently, of just people who are like, I've got a ratio, a rule of thumb that for every 50 units, I get one person who's certifiably crazy. Like just off the rocker, should be on meds, is not. Or if they're on meds, they need better ones, right?
Okay.
Yeah, it's like, and they're just, they call about, okay, I'll give you one. This is a recent one. It's just fresh in my mind. Emergency. Someone left a toy, like a cat toy mouse near her car. The reason why this is an emergency is because this is according to her, we've told people that she has a mice issue in her unit. And now this is people, like her neighbor's way or people's way of harassing her and tormenting her by putting toy mice near where she parks her car. And we need to go and pull we need to pull 2 weeks of surveillance footage to find out who put the toy mouse near her car so she can file a police report for harassment. It's impossible that someone just bought a cat toy or a dog toy for their pet and forgot it near like that parking space. And because of this, they're no longer going to use their carport, and they are no longer going to, they're not going to follow the parking rules or any other rules because of this harassment that's going on that we've allowed to happen. And Bella got that email or that, and I look at her and she's like, you have to read this one yourself. And I was like, what? And I read it. And I'm like, yeah, because we have nothing better to do than to, tell your neighbors that you have a mice issue, which I might add, you're the only one with a mice issue in the entire complex, right? Like you're the only one that has, this has been.
That's a little strange.
It is. But you know what? So I had this other similarly crazy lady in a different complex who had squirrels in her roof, squirrels in her attic, right? Mm-hmm. And it's so funny that it's usually the most imbalanced and toxic people. I don't know what they project out into the world, but like rodents will just find their way into their unit. It is nuts. And I after seeing this, I firmly believe in the law of attraction. Like you're going to attract into your life, like, whatever you're putting out into the world, mm-hmm. because I see it too many times where the people who just have the worst demeanors and energy and disposition, like the weirdest things happen to them. Just like they attract, like the wildlife even mm-hmm. knows to torment them. And anyways, so this is my running theory on what's actually happening.
There's a complex and there's mm-hmm. only one person that has mice. See, because I always believed that mice didn't discriminate.
Okay.
That was my theory, that it doesn't matter who you are, where you live. If they want to come in and be warm, they're going to come in. One person in an entire complex?
Yes. I will preface with this. Many other units, not many, I know a handful of other units. Let's say they'll get like a mouse or two a year and they just put a trap out, or they just deal with it, right? And I don't know how much of it is this person exaggerating or wanting the association to pay for it or whatever it is. But the policy is like, if out of 28 or 30 units, 5 of them get mice in a year, that's fine. We have a contract, where they put the bait boxes around. Mm-hmm. But every once in a while, a mouse will get in. And that particular complex is mostly field mice. It's not rats or anything like that. But this person is having this exaggerated reaction to the mice. But to the point where I can't tell if it's that the mice are specifically targeting her or if she's just being very exaggerative. But I also so this particular community is very like, they used to have like 20 feral cats running around the complex, just barn cats. Mm. And that's how they kept their mice problem in check. Mm-hmm. And they were just kind of community cats. And over the years, the cats were adopted or died off or whatever the case. Until when I came on, there was like 1 or 2 cats left. And a few unit owners would leave the cat food out. And, it's a community that's kind of wooded. They're very wildlife friendly. They like cats. They like, birds. And, it's you buy a property there because you want to be in the woods. And so if you get a mouse once or twice a year, you're probably fine with it. But there was 2 units in that complex that like hate wildlife. Like if they see a cat, they like freak out. They're mad about neighbors feeding the cat.
In the woods.
Right. And that's the thing. It's like, buy a property that fits your personality. Like if you don't like wildlife and you don't like squirrels and you don't like acorns falling on your car and you don't want the potential for a squirrel to, nest in your gutter or your roof. And, these are really big issues, the squirrels and the acorns and the mice and the cats. And
Nobody's complaining about acorns.
oh, yeah. I have one lady who wants me to take down half of a tree because the acorns, it drops acorns onto her BMW.
You got to be kidding me.
Nope. Dead serious.
And she knows that it's going to just grow back.
Oh, yeah. I think she wants the whole tree down over her car. Like where her car is, like trees everywhere, right? But she wants this tree down because it drops acorns and dents her car. I'm like,
so how do you resolve that as a property manager?
This particular individual, this is the same person who's got the squirrels in the attic. This is the same person who has a lot of various issues. And so for a period of time, they were also on the board. And my life was a nightmare. And I, contemplated doing awful things to myself all the time because I would dread the board meetings every month. And ultimately, the requests just kept piling up. And the next one was more ridiculous than the last. And there was the squirrels and the acorns and this and, the windows and like everything, right? It was just piled up and wanted the association to pay for everything. Didn't want to pay for anything. Lights were out, all this stuff. And eventually I just said, she kept sending maintenance requests that all the board would see. And then she would write to the board behind my back. And like certain board members would be like, hey, listen, I don't know if you knew this, but like this lady's saying XYZ about you and XYZ and taking pictures and just being really like divisive and undermining. Just want to make you aware. So all this stuff was going on behind my back and I just had to be patient. I said, so finally she sent like this request that was just ridiculous. And she CC'd the board and I responded and CC'd the board as well. And I said, I pulled up evidence from before I was the management company. So she'd moved in just before I took over management. And she had written this giant letter to the previous property manager about all this stuff, right? And the previous property manager sent it to me like, hey, listen, can you help me with this? Like, there's all that. So I read through the letter and I attached the letter I said, this is the letter that you wrote to the previous property management company. We've fixed about most of these issues. Most of these issues, I can point to you and show you that we've resolved. You're still, the ones that we haven't are like the acorns, right? And a few other ones. I said, I'm attaching this to indicate to you that this is not, what you're complaining about is not like a objective complaint that I can resolve. It's like, it's an internal unhappiness and I can't fix your internal state. Like I can't make you a happy person. And I fear that no matter how much I do for you and how many of these items we resolve and how much money we allocate towards you, that you're still not going to be happy because you're an unhappy person. And with that in mind, I can't continue allocating resources into a bottomless pit because you're trying to externalize your internal state of unhappiness. And we're wasting everybody, all other 50 units resources trying to fix your issues that, you got to spread the love, man. Like you I can't just spend all my time working on your stuff.
And how did the board feel about her issues and the acorns and?
So the way I wrote it out, and I supported documentation, and I even put together a spreadsheet of every maintenance request that I'd received for that association. And out of 50 units, she made up close to 60% of the maintenance requests, right? She alone, 60% of the maintenance requests for the whole association came from her. So I CC'd that spreadsheet, and I CC'd the letter to the previous, and I wrote this whole thing. I said, I can't help. And ultimately, the rest of the board saw it and was like, oh, wow. And they were like, I had a couple board members call me like, oh, snap, you did it. And then she proceeded to quit the board. She like got real offended by that and quit the board. And my life has been spectacular ever since.
Oh, wow.
And it was just one of those things where it was like, I just called her out. In a respectful, professional way, but it was like, I can't do this. Right. And, you know, I'm because of the nature of how she was going about it in a very public way, I had to respond in a somewhat public way and put it out there. Like, this is what this lady's doing, and this is how I'm trying to handle it. And this is what I think the issue is. And just by calling it what it was, she was offended, and she quit on her own volition. And it was the best thing that, honestly, our board meetings ever since then have been amazing.
Oh, good.
And everybody gets along, and it's not really contentious, and we all look forward, and we're all joking around, and we get stuff done, and it's effective, and it all changed once she left.
Okay, what was the worst fake emergency at the Muse?
Worst fake emergency at the Muse. Okay. This one was, okay. I don't know if it was a fake emergency, but it was one that we addressed because of who it was and the fact that we appreciated. So Dave, he called me one time because there was a bird in his unit. And he was freaking out, like panic attack, call the police. Like, I was afraid he was going to be hospitalized because he was panicking so hard.
I'm so surprised.
And so in that phone conversation, he explained that, he was abused as a kid or whatever. And this was like triggering some PTSD situation, this bird in his unit. And it was like one of the most panicked and desperate calls that I've ever gotten. And I sent Gio out there, and I think Gio and maybe Corey was with me at the time, and they went over there and they got the bird out, and they figured out that it had come from the maintenance closet. There was like a stove vent, like an exhaust, and there was a gap, or there was a hole, or the mesh had come off somewhere. I wasn't there, I didn't see it, but there was some way that around that stove exhaust for the furnace that the bird was able to get in. And so they fixed that, and they got the bird out. And Dave was really, really happy and appreciative. And but that was I call it a fake. I mean, it was an emergency for him, like you said. For him, it was an emergency, but it was not really an emergency. But because it was for him, like, I feel okay that we went and we handled it, right? I've gotten a few of those potentially from Carlton, from 10A as well. Just where it's like, there's like a leak and they wait until it's been going on for like 2 months to tell me about it. And then it's an emergency. But it's like, this has been going on for a while. Deb, that's the worst fake. That might be the worst actual, in fact, fake emergency at the Muse.
What was hers?
The issues with the kids playing upstairs. Yeah. So to give a little bit of backstory, there's a unit owner who was adamant that we had to find the upstairs neighbors because their children were playing during the daytime, and it was causing, they were running around and they could hear it in their unit. But like, this is like during the day, kids being kids. And, but because their rooms are upstairs and they get migraines and this and that, like, it's unacceptable. And it was a really tough situation because it's like, they're really not doing anything wrong. There's nothing we can do about it.
Right. And I think from that door being open, I get complaints from other unit owners.
I've heard Ernie's now on it too. And I told him, he hasn't called me about it, but I know he's been talking to to Umi. And I'm just
I've gotten calls about that as well.
You tell them the same thing, right? Like, there's nothing we can do about that.
Them type of calls, I refuse them type of calls. I'll say, call Jared.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
He hasn't called me about that yet because he knows what my answer is going to be.
I think probably I want to say my worst fake. I wouldn't have used that. That was a definite call Jared. I would say the light bulb. Somebody called me
in the middle of the night
because the light bulb went out. And my response
in the unit
basically was, no, this was in the tens.
Okay.
In a hallway. Well, can you replace the bulb? I have one.
Mm-hmm.
If it takes a regular bulb, I have a regular bulb that can go in there. If you can replace it, like, right. I can provide that. Like, I don't know why somebody wouldn't just take the initiative to just replace the bulb. I don't know if I would call someone for that.
Right. Well, certainly not in the middle of the night.
I don't think I would call someone for that, period. I would just replace it. If I live there,
right.
If I own a unit
in that building
and I live there and I step out my door and a bulb has gone out, I'm just going to replace the bulb.
Hey.
Do you? Not unless I cannot get the cover off. Not unless it's one of them type of issues.
It's a relatively easy to cover to get off. But to answer your question, I think that is a great quality. It is also unique of you. I feel most people are going to call me about that. And I'm okay getting calls about that. If it's in a common area, like, we'll get the bulbs changed. But that's also not an emergent. That's not a call you in the middle of the night emergency.
Right.
Like, I understand it's dark, but also, what the hourly rate for an emergency call is. You really want someone to come out at midnight to change the bulb.
Or just be courtesy, and just change the bulb.
Change the bulb.
For you and your neighbor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good one.
So what else have been challenging for you at the Muse?
At the Muse.
Other than the water.
The water. Most of the so I'll say this. It's interesting because we have some properties that are really, nice properties, high-end properties and nice areas. And what I find is that we try our hardest and people are they find a reason to be unhappy. Mm. At the Muse, by and large, when people are unhappy, it's for a valid reason. Mm. And people are far more appreciative in general at the Muse and easygoing. Like, if something's not perfect, it's like, for the most part, they're going to be okay with it. Mm-hmm. So I will say that I think that the Muse, the community itself, is one of the easiest to work with because people are by and large just gracious and nice, right? There's been a few, obviously, difficult situations and difficult individuals, but I will say as a whole, you guys have been good in that sense. I would say outside of the actual property itself, which most of those maintenance items are just a byproduct, like the difficult, like we have a leak now that's up on one of the chimney stacks. The only way to fix it is to rent a $1,600 machine for a week and fix it. It's like, we know we're getting siding, so why do we don't really want to rent this machine to do this work, but it's going to keep leaking until it's done. And it's like just a byproduct of the property being, the siding being so dilapidated and the buildings being so tall.
Tall, right.
Right. That makes it challenging. Logistically speaking, most other properties we can get stuff with a ladder, stuff like that. The Muse is a property that logistically is a nightmare for certain maintenance items. Mm-hmm. And then just learning how to work with your treasurer. I think that's one of the most challenging things. And it's not that he's a bad person he's just very detailed and comes to decisions, or everything is just a time-consuming process with him. Right? And he's always going to ask and try to negotiate the best deal for himself and for the association. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it's at the expense of like, dude, like what you're asking from me is just kind of ridiculous right now. And he just doesn't see it. Like
when I first purchased, he was the president.
Okay.
He was the president. I remember we used to go to his house. I had meetings, and not that I was on the board, but of course, anyone is invited.
Right.
Then this was before you. I'm trying to think of when. Oh no, when we had Marissa's company. Mm-hmm. I think that's when I asked him to come on. I'm trying to think, who was the treasurer at the time, or why? But I almost forced his hand. Like, I think I had to call him like 2 or 3 times
to get him to agree
and say, hey, are you busy? Would you mind? And it was just like, well, what you got going on type thing, because there was a point of time where he didn't want to have anything to do with the board for some years.
Right.
He refused. I remember him coming to a couple of meetings and disputing quite a bit of,
issues.
Some things that was going on. So, yeah, when I called him, I'm like, come back. And he finally agreed. And at this point, I was having meetings at my house.
Right.
With the board. We were having meetings. And he is very detailed.
He is.
Very, very analytical. And I kind of feel, safe that he is like that, because it allowed me to step back a little bit.
There's a benefit.
Allowed me to step back a lot, actually.
Right.
But it can be, like you say, time consuming, that's just the personality.
Right. And I think that's what it comes down. Like, I understand why he's valuable on the board. I understand that he is the way he is, and that serves a really important role in his life outside of, and even in his HOA life. Mm-hmm. It's just been a huge adjustment for me to have to learn how to work with that, and understand that, like, for me, respect equals being considerate of someone's time, right? And I think that's for a lot of New Englanders, that's kind of right, like
just life in general.
Right. We want to be respectful
of people's time. Exactly. But then when I come against some type of challenges, you know what I say? I think this is when, like, God is testing my patience.
That is true.
God, wants me to learn.
Yes.
Learn how to be more patient. And tolerant. So this is what he has said in my life.
Right.
So you might have to, But when that clock is ticking,
Right. I've had mentors that tell me, like, you better not pray for patience because you're not going to get it. Just you're going to have to learn it the hard way, right? And
you're doing that with the muse.
right. But and here's the thing: what I've learned about him is he's not unreasonable. He's slow to come to a decision and he's slow to change his mind. And so, it's not that he's even like, I always thought he was just refusing to pay invoices. And that's not it. It's that he wants all of the information before making a decision. And to be successful in business, in my world, you have to be comfortable making decisions with 60 to 70% of the information you would like to have. That has to be good enough for most of the cases. And you have to come to the decisions quickly, and they have to be the right decision the first time. And what I get frustrated with is there's just so much discussion, even with regards to the minutes and the corrections to the minutes and in the meeting. Like, we talk about it, but then we have to go back and rehash it and talk about it again and then talk about it again because all of the details need to be very clearly laid out. God forbid you make an adjustment or a change to any of those details, right? Because it's all, we've talked about it all. It's all out there. If a circumstance changes and you've got to make an adjustment on the fly, whoa, we got to go back and talk about the whole thing again.
All over again.
And I think that has been, again, I think that in the treasurer role, it's in the best interest for the association because he's making sure he knows where every cent goes. And I'm grateful that him and I have had enough of we've worked together long enough where there's enough trust where, like, he will forsake his nature and kind of just let some stuff, he won't fight me on stuff because he'll realize that it's just like, dude, come on. And I've learned that to just be patient. And I have these extra meetings with him and I let him look through all the invoices and I get some other work done. And when he has a question, I'll answer the question. It's like, it's fine. And we get through it.
I know. It was probably too easy with me because I'd be like, oh, yep, I remember this was done. Check.
Yeah.
Oh, I remember this was done. Check. Yep. Hey, so, so I get it. Some things could be simpler, but oh my goodness, even with self-managing, the times I had to get on the phone with, these different vendors and call and verify. And if there's a mysterious bill that show up, I put in so much time tracking, like, why is the elevator getting two different invoices? The electric company, two different invoices. There was a time this invoice was for these lights, this invoice was for these lights. Why do we have two telephones? It's a relief to not have to do that anymore.
It is. It is.
To not have to do that. So, I appreciate you both. Really.
We serve different purposes. We have different personalities. And what's cool is that you guys have also a good board. Like Martel, Carson, Latasha, everybody's, the rest of them are pretty efficient with how they process stuff, right? And, I think that you have a good balance of personalities. And you guys all mean well. You're all trying to do the right thing by the association.
Everyone get along.
Yeah. Sane, reasonable people.
Yeah. I think the board is great. Couldn't ask for a better board. I think they're, all of them are great.
I'm bummed we're going to be losing Carson. He's been good.
Yeah.
He's been good.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to think of who you're going to get to fill his shoes.
It would be up to whoever's on the board.
I know. Well, whoever the ownership is. There's a few newer unit owners that I think could do a good job if we ask them.
They should start attending the meetings.
That's true.
That's one thing is people not attending the meetings. So I don't know if it's a difference because now it's virtual, but everybody's life has been virtual since COVID.
Right.
So that really shouldn't make much of a difference because at some point, if they
Right.
work a regular 9 to 5, they had to be virtual. But we were having in-person meetings and we stopped that once, COVID hit. So, but I mean, more people need to join in on the meetings to know what's going on, to be a part of the community, instead of finding out things secondhand or disputing any changes that are made, any rules.
Yeah,
they,
people
they
want to get
should.
involved just to stir up trouble. Be
Some,
part of some,
do.
right? Yeah.
Some do,
Be,
or be angry, dispute.
yeah.
But it would be good if the majority of the community attended,
Yeah.
the meetings, especially if they want to be on the board, because it does take some. It takes some work.
Right. And I'll say this to people, viewers watching, right? If for your own HOAs, be willing to be part of the solution, not just part of the problem, right? And I don't mean being a problem in the sense that you're only, you're violating rules or whatever. But like, if the only time you communicate with the board or the management company is for problems, right? You only bring your problems to them, then all you're doing is contributing to the problems. Be part of the solution, which means going to meetings when there might not be a problem. You're just trying to be helpful, be supportive, right? It doesn't have to, you don't have to necessarily even be on the board or be at every meeting, but just be willing to be part of the solution and be proactive and, have positive interactions and, let the company know or the board know that when you see them, you notice this, you appreciate that, they did a good job, XYZ, right? Like little stuff like that goes a long way,
The community doesn't really do that. I think that
some of them do. There's some people who do. Derek and Sonia,
yes.
Latasha, even before she was on the board, Carson, the roommate, there's certain members that even Carlton, he's had some, and Steve, they've both mentioned stuff when they're happy, and I think my point is, and I think what I'm trying to share with people is that it doesn't always have to be a negative interaction.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. I think they should attend the meetings just to know, just to be in the know of what's going on and have interest. What's going on in the community or the budget but it may be easier for them to call you or I and say whatever. Because that's what they do. So I don't know. Maybe we need to work on a way to get them more involved.
Sure. Yeah, I would. I think so. I think once the siding starts getting done and it starts to feel and look like a refreshed community, I think you're going to get people who are I think a lot of people are going to sell during that time period. Just because I don't know what the special assessment's going to bring. Anytime you have big change like that, some people just look at that as a time to sell for good, bad, or otherwise. And I think that once everything gets a facelift, everybody's going to have a different attitude about their community and about themselves and about their participation. They're going to be a little more proud to be part of it. And I think we'll get some more participation. But I mean, the fact that you guys even have all vacancies on the board filled is really good. I mean, you didn't when we took over, and most associations have trouble, at least in this area, the ones that when we take over, most of them are having trouble filling all their board vacancies. So, I think that's a testament to better community involvement, the fact that you guys have a full board, for what it's worth.
And I was just bringing them, the others into meetings, which would be good.
I wish you guys had like a clubhouse or something on site where we could meet with people.
It'd be nice to put a pavilion out in that field.
Maybe
Some parking spaces and a pavilion.
maybe we can look at that. I like that. I like that. Cool. What else? Anything else that you feel is important to chat about today?
Can't think of anything.
No. How was this? Was it more fun than you thought it was going to be?
It is.
Okay. Was it
Definitely.
a smoother, easier conversation?
Definitely.
You were like, you better have questions. You better have stuff for me to talk about.
But it's also good having a good relationship with you.
I appreciate that. And vice versa.
Easy to talk to. Glad you came aboard.
Thank you.
Very happy with your services.
Thank you.
And always happy to communicate with you.
I appreciate it. And I appreciate you being generous with your time and taking the time out. I know you're busy, but you came down here to check out the shop and do this. And, it means a lot. So thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Anytime.
Thanks.
You can have my time.
I appreciate it. Cool. So that's basically it. I guess we'll post this in a couple weeks, and I think your story, the story for your association, is a really cool one, and I think the fact that you guys are on the right track is also really cool. So
at least we getting the key things done.
Yeah.
The problem solver. So that's what you are to us.
I appreciate it.
Our problem solver.
I appreciate it. That's what I like to be. If I can be that person for more people, I think I'd be happy.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what it's all about. That's what this is all about. Just help more people.
Yes.
And I think your story will help. I think hearing your story will help a lot of people.
Okay. I hope so.
It will. There's a lot of people struggling with crappy situations in their HOA. And I think by seeing other people and how they've gotten through it and how they've been able to turn things around for their association goes a long way. You guys did it.
Yeah, that's the thing with an association. You have to come together, as an association. Mm-hmm. That's the only way it can happen.
Yeah, 100%. Mm-hmm. Cool. Well, thanks, Danita.
Thank you, and I'll be in tuned.